Rolf is based off Danny, so a lot of characters have some of him in it, but Rolf is a big one, with Danny just outright saying that he reminds him of his own upbringing, and that comes from all of the really bizarre customs and behavior and all that silly stuff that Rolf and his family were known for. And the place where this comes from is that Danny's parents emigrated from Italy, and then little young Danny, living in North America, probably looked at his parents' behavior and stuff, and compared that to his neighbors and peers and saw how different his traditional parents acted, and he must have saw it really funny and silly and weird and all that stuff. And he applied that to Rolf by making up fake customs and having just this unknown made-up heritage, and it's in some of his other stuff as well. And I could probably vouch for that because I've heard of other people in real life who are of Italian descent talk about weird stuff that their grandparents have done, including Finny from Fine Sauce, so make of it what you will. Ed never says gravy in the movie, so I'm probably like the one person on Earth who was always bothered by this, but to me it was just always a really weird thing left out, because like it's the finale. You'd think that they'd like put in everything from the show and give a rundown on everything and include one of the characters' most known catchphrases. And it's especially egregious because there's a moment in there where he says buttered toast for no reason instead of gravy. Like, he never said like butter toast on purpose for like no fucking reason. That was what gravy was used for, and I'm getting really angry just talking about it. And the stuff that he was diving into as he said butter toast even looked like gravy. Like, come on. I feel like there's some other things that the movie leaves out, but that was like the biggest one to me. Double D had a crush on Sarah originally, so I'm sure that we all know the episode where Sarah falls in love with them and has this really attached crush and stuff, and other references afterwards that allude to her being, like, into him. But not too long before all of that, in the first episode in fact, there's this weird little early installment weirdness moment where Double D is talking to her saying that he lost something too, and they put hard eyes on him for a moment. And yeah, it's really strange, and I guess this implies that for a second they wanted to do this, but then they're like, no, let's flip it. Episode timeline. So this is referring to how there's like a continuous flow of how the episodes pace out, and yeah, it's pretty cool because like that almost means that there's like continuity to the show, which is going to be talked about later on in the series. And I always like to fill in exactly when each episode takes place. Now, most take place in the summer, as we all know, like, that's how the first few seasons are. But there's a lot of those episodes, so it's kind of difficult to fit them all into, like, what would be one realistic summer break from school. Like, I always like to imagine that each episode happens, like, every day of their life. Like, there's no breaks, except for that one time they hid from the belly button eater for 3 days. And to fit it all in, I even like to think that the Ed Touchables might just be like right after they finished school, like on the same day they got out. But yeah, that happens, and we eventually reach September, and maybe it was extended a bit too for a certain theory that's coming up later, even though it's really not that good, admittedly. But yeah, school happens, and the episodes are more spread out then, because you hear them like mentioning like which months it is through like context clues and stuff. And like not too long into that, a town called Ed happens, and the Kankers think there's a Thanksgiving special on TV, and they say it as if it's a normal thing, and the Halloween episode happens before that. So yeah, like we're like jumping like probably like almost like once a week on average by then. And then we start jumping way ahead where it's suddenly winter with the lost episodes, and the Christmas and Infaded specials, if you count those two as canon. Then we jump a couple of months again to the Valentine's episode, again, if you count that one as canon even. And then, after that, we skip again some months, and the Big Picture show happens, which is the finale. A lot of people see it as this being the start of their next summer break. Personally, I always like to see it as the spring instead, like, just because of the way the colors look and stuff, and, like, that covers every season. And then afterwards can just be their nice summer, but either or works. Show is just memories told as seniors. Yep, it's a sad but overlooked thing, but at the end of Take This, Ed, and Shove It, they stay old adults, and Eddie realizes that's just memories from the past being shared. And if you asked me, it's depressing enough to not believe it and continue overlooking it and just pretend they're kids. And speaking of which, Take This, Ed, and Shove It was the original finale. Yeah, the show was supposed to end there, which is why, like, that episode feels kind of like a finale. Like, it's a really different and real feeling to that. And again, like, the sad ending and the revelation and such. But Cartoon Network wanted more from the series since it was so successful, so they pushed for more seasons, which explains why, like, the rest of the show was so different afterwards, with them going to school and the digital art and stuff, like, all being hand-done. And the writing was probably even weaker to some people. But at least it means that we didn't get a sad end. Ralph's cow is named Beatrice. Yep, a lot of people probably didn't even know that the cow was named, but she is. And it's named in the scam of the century of all things, the Nintendo DS game that nobody played, not even myself. And this has been taken as the official name for Beatrice, like it's used by the wiki and stuff. Now there was this moment that nobody really mentions in Ramblin' Ed, which is one of my favorites, where Ed just quickly calls her Poochie while scratching her. But I don't know, maybe just because of how overlooked it was, like, I guess you could just say that it was just a quick nickname that he was giving her. But I don't know, I like the name. Johnny is spelled Johnny. Yes, there is no H. That is the official way to spell it. People still massively do not realize this and continue to include an H. There is no H. There never was no H. H doesn't exist. Spread the word. Do not believe in the closed captioning. It's Jonny. Dumb Purgatory Theory. So this is kind of the first strong entry where I kind of am subjective with the title by inserting the word dumb in it. But that's mainly because I just want to discredit this and throw it away as much as possible, even though it hasn't really been talked about yet, but it should be on the iceberg. And this would have been much closer to the tip, like probably even in the sky, if this was made in like 2011 to 2012 when everybody knew about this. But it's also like been more obscured since then, thankfully, and it's a little bit darker themed, but it's so fucking stupid that it's up a little bit higher than the other darker entries. But yeah, it's just a really bad typical theory that was popular back then with no proof that you could do for literally anything. Like, oh, they dead. I'm not gonna waste our time by explaining it. I'm sure you can go find some old videos talking about it. But like, it's so fucking easy to disprove, and what really makes me mad is that when I was getting a picture, there was a fucking article that was like, ooh, crazy theories that can actually be true. It's like, no, fuck you, you fucking idiot who wrote this. I'm sorry that I'm getting really heated talking about this, but I'm sure it's maybe funny. But it's so fucking easy to just prove that it's not real, and it was made by somebody who barely knows fucking shit of the show. It was like, oh yeah, I remember watching that as a kid before, and fucking because, like, one of the reasons, like, oh, where are their parents? They're nowhere to be found. But if you watch the show or watch the series at all, then you would know that we already talked plenty about where their parents are. And the biggest thing that nobody fucking talks about enough and doesn't immediately use it to throw the theory out is that it says Jimmy died in the year 2000, even though the show was on before the year 2000. And don't tell me like, oh, well, maybe it takes place 20 minutes in the future. No, it's 100% just because whoever made that did not fucking remember when the show even started. And there we go. Anyway, that does it for this video. Tune in next time when we start talking about things that only really avid fans of the series would know about and realize and discuss. Thank you.